Well, hi, and welcome to episode 130 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. So Ella and Adriana are in the chat, so please let them know where you are watching from. Give us your name as well. It'd be really great to hear from you online. We'll be posting up some links in the chat so you can vote up the questions, and more importantly, also add your own. So just follow the link through to Slido and add your own questions, and we'll get them over to the panel to answer. Just remember, if your question is selected, your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show. So please stick around and watch that happen as well. So today we're talking about how to build a career in service management. Now, there's a quote from somebody called Damon Richards, who I really like. Your customer doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, that's an interesting food for thought. So a really successful service manager needs a wide range of skills, a lot of really good decision-making capabilities, and probably a holistic understanding of the business strategy at whole as well. So how do you identify those skills and take the next steps to becoming a great service manager? Well, to answer that question, and of course all of yours online, we've got a great panel joining us today, so let's jump right in and meet them. So first up today is Mart Rovers. Mart is a leadership coach, consultant, trainer, and he's the president at INTERPROM. And he specializes in business relationship management, service management, information security management, project and change. In fact, there isn't really a lot that Mart doesn't do, okay? But I'm sure he's looking forward to sharing his experiences with you in the panel today. So, Mart, welcome. We can't hear you, Mart. Okay, I'll come back to Mart in a sec. He's having some technical difficulties. So our next panelist is Dierk Söllner. Dierk's a highly experienced, as he described himself, solopreneur. He's also a trainer and a coach with his vision of strengthening people and teams empathetically and competently. Combined with his long-standing and comprehensive professional expertise in IT methodology and frameworks, it makes Dierk a great member of today's panel. So Dierk, welcome.
Hello, Nigel. Hello, service management community all over the world. I'm happy to be a panelist again, and as always, I look forward to sharing knowledge and gaining knowledge for myself. And I'm sure we will get some great questions again.
Thanks, Dierk. It's great to have you on the panel again. Johann Botha is a digital change provocateur, author, and the CEO of a company called getITright. Now, as a regular contributor to this panel, he specializes in building digital age capabilities in organizations using an innovative and business agility method called ADAPT. So be sure to go and take a look at that. Google ADAPT. We'll try and get a link in for you later so you can take a look at that. Johann's focus is practical skills development. He uses workshops and coaching and training, consulting to make people or enable people to transform their organizations. Welcome, Johann.
Thanks for the punt, Nigel. And Dierk, I'm glad you said welcome service management community. Because I see myself as a service manager, and it's been 30 years. And awesome to be part of this community.
Thanks, Johann. Our next panelist is Sarbojit Bose. Sarbojit is the owner and managing director of training consultancy services for Cyberservices in Singapore. Sarbojit is also a really prominent member of the IT service management community. And in addition to training, he's a regular speaker at cybersecurity and cloud conferences in Singapore. Welcome, Sarbojit.
Well, Nigel, thank you. Thank you that you are back once again with us. And thank you, Level Up team, for having me. And I'm really honored to be a part of this panel with the other service managers or the community people here. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarbojit. And our last panel member is Stephan Brendel. And Stephan is the EMEA regional lead at APMG. But Stephan has a wealth of service management experience in his own right. And he's active in a lot of different associations. For example, ITSMF Germany. He speaks regularly at conferences. He's been a consultant and a trainer in IT service management and project management for many, many years. So welcome, Stephan.
Thanks, Nigel. And welcome also from me to the service management community all over the world. I think I know a lot of them. And I'm really looking forward to today's panel session.
Fantastic. Mart, have you managed to get some audio back?
I hope it's back. Can you hear me? All right,
We
excellent.
can.
Well, thank you, Nigel, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm looking really forward to these questions. And sorry, Nigel, you just stole my quote, but I have another one. A good service costs less than a bad service.
Very good point. Very, very good point. So, okay, let's jump in and meet our question master for today, Jenny Hepler. Jenny is joining us from Pittsburgh in the USA. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Nigel. It's great to be here. Great to be back on the show being question master. And it's really fun today to be question master with you as the host, Nigel, who actually introduced me to the service management world early in my career. So it's going to be a really exciting show today.
I agree completely, Jenny. And let's not take too much of a trip down memory lane, but it was a number of years ago.
Yes, just a couple.
Just a couple, indeed. All right, Jenny. So what is our first question for today?
So our first question is from Gavin. Has service management changed over the last few years? And if so, what are the main aspects to consider?
Okay, I think we'll start with Stephan, then we'll go to Dierk, and then we will go to Johann.
Well, service management has changed over the last few years, maybe even more than in recent years. But I realized that it seems to be that every panelist here has to have a quote. So I'm coming up with one to support that question, because of all the changes. If you are looking at digitalization, if you are make a rubbish process digital, you have a rubbish digital process. It goes along those things like a fool with a tool is still a fool, right? So first of all, keep that in mind. The reason I'm bringing up that quote is because if you look at the pandemic, and I know the pandemic is quoted quite often, the things that changed the most was that people went into home offices. And that is, on one hand, something like you're not used to do, but for the supporting services and service management behind that was a real challenge. People were working on laptops at times when the service desk usually was closed, just to use one example, right? So it is probably for a lot of organizations, it was the moment of truth to see how consistent are their processes actually in IT service management.
I think that's a very good point, Stephan, that you make there. Things have changed somewhat since those days, but let's hear what Dierk has to say.
As to my point of view, I would agree to Stephan. Service management has definitely changed. Change is part of our lives, and something that doesn't change disappears from view. So service management has changed from a fixed view to flexible adaptability. Fast. Service management has also opened up to new developments such as agile and DevOps, and also provides answers to new challenges. For me, the important thing is what has remained is the wealth of knowledge and the many years of experience on the issues that are still important for IT organizations. So in Germany, we say something like, those who are dead live longer.
Very interesting quote, Dierk. And I think you're right. The wealth of experience is really the important aspect here. Over the years, we've accumulated a huge amount of data points. So it's pretty much fairly well defined now where things can go wrong and also probably what constitutes good service. So Johann, what are your thoughts on this?
I would agree and disagree. I think what we need to do to provide good services has remained the same, but how we do it has changed quite a lot. So there's a fundamental set of practices that I think is universal and timeless, and we need to learn how we're going to deal with that as contexts keep on changing.
Very good points. Very good points, Johann. I agree with you. All right. So let's hear from Sarbojit, and then we'll go to Mart.
Hi. My take on this is, yes, service management has changed, and it has changed for a good purpose. And there are organizations today who are much more agile and who are much more different than the organization that we had seen 20, 30 years back. So for that purpose, service management had to adopt and adapt to that, and to make itself more more open and flexible for that purpose. So what I would say, Bill Gates said, your most unhappy customers are a good source of knowledge. So we must learn from our customers and try to adopt and adapt to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarbojit. It's a very good point. We need to be able to learn and adapt and understand where we went wrong. I think one of the challenges that we face today, though, that we perhaps didn't have, a number of years ago, is that the complexity of systems that are the end-to-end chain, providing the services that we're offering to the business and to our customers, that has increased in complexity enormously. So the challenges around that obviously are, quite substantial. There's a lot more to learn, in essence. All right, let's hear from Mart.
I agree with everything that has been said, and it's a great question, Gavin. I'd say I'm with Johann on this one, as in I'm on the fence whether it has changed or not, because I think the spirit has always been there, but was it picked up by the audience as far as what service management was all about? For example, having a service focus, having a service culture in an organization, even know what a service is. I mean, how many organizations adopted a service management framework or standard, and all the focus was on processes instead of, hey, there's also a service. I remember was dealing with a company once, trying to get 20,000 certified, ISO 20,000 certified, and in the very first session says, well, you need services. What's the service? They were panicking. They thought was just a process exercise. So the core, is still there. I think the spirit, as far as what has changed, is maybe that forward-looking aspect. As far as, you may have your services today, and they may, be fine, and then servicing whatever they need to service. But what about the service in 3 years from now? I think that strategic forward-looking aspect is maybe coming more to the forefront, giving the fast change, rate of change that we're all going through. And not to mention all the dependencies, like you said, Nigel, with the supply chain, how services depend on other services. I think that's another focal point that is maybe also changing the perspective of service management.
Thanks, Mart. Yeah, totally agree with you there. So just want to give a shout out to our audience online. We've got a ton of people that have joined us. I think Nina, welcome, and welcome from sunny Romford today. That's really great to see you. So lots of people from all around the world here. I'd like to just say, thanks, Cassine, from joining for us from Istanbul, Turkey. And our thoughts go out to you and your families and colleagues and friends over there, as things, I understand, are not very pleasant at the moment for you guys. But hopefully you guys will see some light in the future very soon with that. And Wanduma, welcome back again from Ethiopia. I hope you're enjoying the show. And I see Diane is online as well, so welcome to Diane. And guys, just everybody, let us know where you're watching from. Just put it into the chat. We can see you online. It's great to have you all here. Get your questions in early. All right. Jenny, can we have our next question, please?
Sure, Nigel. Next question is from our live viewer, Diane. Can you recommend tips to become a service manager who meets the technical needs of stakeholders, for example, HR?
Interesting question, this. So, Johann, let's start off with you, and we'll move to Stephan next.
I guess I suppose that the important thing to remember, you're talking about a service manager, so it's about providing services to your customer. And we can't really do that unless you understand the business of the business. So I would highly recommend that you immerse yourself in the life of the customer, their work life, and not only focus on requirements and processes and things like that, but understand the business of the business. because that's the way that you can help them the best.
Yeah. And I think that's a very, very valid point. Understanding the business, what they actually do, how the business is structured, what it's trying to achieve, what its goals are, what its strategy is. If you don't understand that, it's going to be very, very difficult. So very important. Okay, Stephan, over to you.
Thank you. Theoretically, if stakeholders like HR can express their technical needs, then the service manager might be the right role. But I think this would exceed the limits, the frame the service manager is working in. What we need here to really understand a stakeholder and get this translated, that's rather the role of a business relationship manager, I would say. At least there's an overlap in there. So that's, and there are enough tools and enough methods and techniques to do that. But I can remember whenever I was a service manager was talking to stakeholders, to departments, what they really could not do, express technical needs.
Yeah. Very good point, Stephan. Sorry. I think that is a very, very good point. It's difficult for somebody who isn't involved in the technical framework to understand and be able to express those properly. But perhaps the BRM role would be a far more suitable one, as you said. All right. Sarbojit, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I would like to take Stephan's word to further to say that, as a service manager, we are not only serving our end customers, but we also sometimes serving our internal customers. So our stakeholders are now much more wider, and they might be more appropriately addressed by a business relationship manager than a service manager. But however, many organizations still don't have the need of a business relationship management. So service manager steps in and works on that, but it is not easy for them and to manage internal and external stakeholders at the same time.
Very good point. Very good point. All right. Mart, what are your thoughts on this?
Great points have been made indeed by the panelists. Indeed, that combination of business relationship management and service management would be a good response here, as far as to meet that those stakeholder needs. In general, service managers. Let's stick to service managers, and say you need to know your business partners, your customers, but you also need to know the technology, the world of technology, the industry, the market, competition. In other words, spread your wings and also look from outside in, inside out, as far as what's going on around you. And what does it mean for your service? I think you're much better positioned at that time to deal with technical needs of your stakeholders, whether it's for, if the focal point is HR or any of the other functions, finance, legal, you name it. That should be part of your job, and you should make time available on your calendar to do that research and to stay current when it's about that. Because if you're not current, your service most likely will not be current either.
Extremely valid point, Mart. Extremely valid point. Okay. Keeping yourself current is part of your career path and should be planned for as well. Really do need to plan for that. And I think we'll cover that a little bit later in the show some more, as I have a sneak preview of some of the questions. And I think there's something along those lines too coming up. Just want to give a shout out to all our viewers again. It's some really fantastic to see people from all over the world online. Renee, really great to see you from Cameroon as well. Tons of people from all over the world. So just don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. If you want to see more videos like the one we're creating here today, more shows like this, there's some really, hi Nick, great to see you from Reading as well. Thanks for joining. And it's unusual that I'm sitting in your seat today. My apologies. But so let's move on, Jenny, if we can. What is the next question, please?
Our next question is from a live viewer. Adelpha, what are the post-pandemic challenges of transition from remote to physical service delivery?
Interesting question. Post-pandemic challenges of moving it from a remote service to physical. Okay. We had it the other way around at first, didn't we, everybody? Right? We had it from the physical side to the remote side. So what actually happens now is in post-pandemic, we're moving it back more to the physical side. So panelists, what are your thoughts on this? Johann, can I come to you on this first?
Yeah, I don't think it's such a difficult thing. I think the more difficult thing that we needed to do was to learn how to deal with people remotely. And the organizational memory is still there to do things physically. But also bear in mind, there's certain things that will never go back to the way it was. There's certain things that we've learned is actually better to do remotely. And certainly a lot of the support activities that's part of service management can be done very effectively remotely. I don't know if there's that much of a challenge. None of our customers seem to find it difficult.
I think you're right, Johann, in many ways there, because if you think about it, it was far, far more challenging for people who were working in a physical world to suddenly transition to a remote world, to a virtual remote world. Everything had to be done remotely. Now, once you've got those remote processes in place, you've got the procedures, you've got the technology in place, transitioning it back to the physical world just makes so much more sense. It's just easier. Right? So I don't think I think I have to agree with you. There aren't going to be as many challenges technically to manage services, but maybe it's more a cultural thing that we need to take a look at. All right, Sarbojit, let's hear from you next, and then Dierk.
Yeah, I would like to point on this factor is that now after the post-pandemic stage, what we say is a new normal, and if we look at most of the organizations are adopting to a hybrid mode of operations. You are not going to your workplace every day, but you are working partly at your workplace and partly from your home or any other place you choose to. In fact, some organizations have started to recruit people across the globe. I know someone from Vietnam being recruited in UK as a project manager. Also, someone in Melbourne in Australia getting recruited in Perth, but working in Melbourne hours. These are the new trends which are coming. So I would say it's not about transitioning back, but holding both the physical and the remote, and also the new normal to be flexible. That will be the main thing to go forward, in service management.
Thanks, Sarbojit. I agree with you there. And one of the funny things is that there are industries or sectors of our industry that are completely used to this. The software development world, for example, it was completely normal for people to be employed remotely around the world. So an American company would employ a bunch of folks all around the world, India, Taiwan, Thailand, you name it. Okay? Wherever the skills were available, the software developers were, right? And that was a completely normal process. So most of that was remote. So I think it's really not a huge challenge if you think about it. I know of trainers even in our world. In fact, some of the folks on this panel are training in other time zones, completely other time zones. It's just a matter of being flexible and adaptable. All right, Stephan, what are your thoughts? Then we'll come to Dierk.
I would agree with you, Nigel, also with what Sarbojit has said. That's maybe something to add. It also depends a little bit on what attitude is the employee expecting or creating the atmosphere, right? I mean, just remember it's not too long ago that we were talking about this grand resignations, where people basically decide to return to their jobs, and then that's why so many jobs are open. What happened, I think, was not a resignation, it was a rejection. So back to where we've been before, as if this has just been a holiday. I think that was the big issue, and that's why it won't happen. I mean, I agree with everything you said. A lot of trainers in that industry or another industry will stay remote, will use much more remote, which is the new normal, and physic will be kind of a luxury exception, so to say. But it requires that there's psychological safety, whatever is happening for those people. Otherwise, they will leave. So I think, so was that what you mean with cultural areas? I think it's psychological safety that's needed.
Yeah, Stephan, I agree with you. Good point there. Dierk, what are your final thoughts on this? Then we'll move on to the next question.
I think I will agree to all the things said before, because it's a cultural thing, and I would ask why. Why are there challenges? Because why do you have to go back to physical service delivery? I think it's no way where you deliver your service. So in Germany we have the discussion about how can we get our workers back to office. So why? Why do you have to have your workers in the office? If you want to control them, that's no need in these times. So I think it's a kind of culture. And if you do your job, if you deliver value to your customer, if you do your job, so how you should not be pressed to go back to office.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's quite an interesting one called part of the Great Resignation is forcing everybody back into the office that was working remotely. So that is going to be a challenge for sure. All right, let's move on to our next question, Jenny, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Our next question is from Hugh. What do you think about knowledge and experience in service management? And is there a difference?
Is there a difference between knowledge and experience? All right, let's start with Dierk. We'll go to Johann and then Stephan.
Okay. Oh, thanks. It's a great question. And in any case, there is a difference, I see. Knowledge is what you can prove in exams. Knowledge can be acquired competitively quickly, and you can get knowledge very fast. Experience takes time, takes more time, and everyone has to gain experience themselves. You can't buy experience. You have to experience it by yourself. And experience is therefore, to my point of view, priceless, virtually priceless. And now I would like to add something very important to my point of view. Knowledge is something that machines can reproduce. Humans can have an advantage there. Machines cannot gain experience.
Very, very interesting point, that. Absolutely true. All right. Johann, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on the experience bit a little bit more, so we know what knowledge is. A good service manager makes a point of gaining experience, and the best way of gaining experience is to get your hands dirty and immerse yourself in what you are doing for the customer and what the customer is doing and how you're contributing to actually realize value at the end of the day. One of the things that most probably irked me the most in the last 30 years of my time in the service management community is this fixation on process and what the book says. Yeah. Experience means that you take your knowledge and you contextualize it. And you say, okay, for this customer, I'm going to do it this way. Or maybe don't do it that way, because I've learned that if you do it that way in this specific context, that's going to be a negative result or a positive result or whatever. So, experience is extremely important. And yes, you can accelerate gaining experience. It's up to you. Get your hands dirty.
Very good point, Johann. Very, very good point indeed. Stephan, you would like to add something?
No, really not, because the guy said it all.
Okay.
So they did everything up. Okay, fine. Let's move that answer on to the next panelist, please.
We'll go to Sarbojit. Thanks.
Yeah, most of the things what I wanted to say has been said, yet I just want to add a small thing is, well, in contrast to knowledge, we normally have is a skill, which in over years get translated as an experience. So knowledge is what we know, and we start our career with just having knowledge and no experience. And as we go through our career, as we work, get our hands dirty with the knowledge applied, what we get is the skills, and the skills give us the experience which we really nurture, and that is something very individualistic and no one can take it from you, but the knowledge can be, as said earlier. Thank you.
Good point. Thanks, Sarbojit. And Mart, what are your final thoughts on this?
Just quickly, if you have knowledge, you probably don't have a lot of stories to share. If you have experience, you should be able to share stories. You should be a good storyteller to share your experience as far as what you've experienced, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think one of the things, my take on this question, and it's a very, very good question. Knowledge is exactly that. You can learn it. You can find the knowledge. You can read the books. You can read the white papers, watch the videos, do all of that stuff. But if you haven't actually done it yourself and gone in, written the process, interacted with your customers, been through the business analysis route with figuring out how the service fits together end on end, you are lacking that experience. So there's a huge difference between the knowledge and the experience side of things. Experience, yes, as a couple of panelists have said, can be accelerated. Get your hands dirty, get in there, get stuff done. And I think more importantly, you need to be in an environment where you can make mistakes. You're never going to do this perfectly every time. Yeah? It's impossible. And who's to say that it is perfect in the first place, right? A framework is not there to tell you that your process is perfect. Your process will never be perfect, but it will be close enough to supply the need of the business. Yeah? And if it meets the needs of the business and provides a great service, then you've done a good job. And you'll only know that once you understand the business in the first place. So, all right, let's move on, Jenny, if you don't mind. What is our next question?
Thanks, Nigel. Our next question is from Catherine. Is service management only meant for IT or ICT organizations? Or are there other industries or functions that can benefit from it?
Wow, yeah. Well, that is an interesting question, and I have some thoughts on that myself. But Johann, I'll come to you first, and then Dierk.
Yeah, I'll make it short. The answer is it's for every organization. And actually, what's interesting is the lessons that we've learned in IT can be very productively applied in other contexts also. So I'll leave the rest of the answer to the panelists.
All right, thanks, Johann. Dierk, your thoughts?
I think it's a good question because, as Johann said, it's meant for any kind of business. But you can do it all the way around, because I want to say service management can learn from other organizations. And then if you look at all the frameworks, they learned from other business models. They learned from other industries. So just get into collaboration, exchange of thoughts, exchange of methods and best practices. So yes, it's not only meant for IT and ICT organizations. Meant for every organization and can learn from any other industry.
Yeah, good points. Absolutely good points there. Mart, what are your thoughts?
So absolutely yes is the answer, short answer. I mean, the service industry represents 70-80% of GDP of some countries. I mean, it's huge. And they all can benefit from service management framework standards out there. A little story here, I was helping an organization benefiting from FitSM, Fit Service Management. And yes, it started in the IT organization. But from the very beginning, also legal and finance jumped on board, and they started benefiting from FitSM as well. They just, erased the IT word, so to speak, and translated it to their own service organization, so to speak, which was HR or finance. So definitely applicable for any organization that provides services.
Thank you, Mart. I totally agree with you. So, just to echo what everybody said, I think that the answer is 100%. It's definitely not only IT related. And a little bit of history. I mean, service management as a concept predates IT's existence in its entirety. Yeah? So long before the first IBM mainframe was even invented, service management as a concept has been around. Have you ever been to a hotel in your life? Yeah? They are doing service management in a hotel on a daily basis. Right? So think about it from that perspective. Almost every industry that provides a kind of service to you, right, should be and does need, in fact, effective and good service management. So very interesting question. I think we've answered that one. So Jenny, let's move on to our next question, please.
We have another live question from Wendy Moo. What will the service delivery look like in post-pandemic?
What will service delivery look like in post-pandemic? Well, the question, I would turn that question around and say, will it look really any different? Johann, let's start with you.
You just said it. No difference than before. At the end of the day, why do we deliver services? We deliver services to create value for our customers. The fact that our customers need value and the value that they need hasn't changed that much. And so maybe some of the ways that we deliver services change, but I think that the delivery of the service and how we measure whether a service is well delivered or not, or valuable, will change.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Sarbojit, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll agree that the service management per se will not change, but some outlooks will change, some measurements will change, and it is changing, in fact. The start has been seen. So the one main thing is, earlier we would measure the process, the ways to achieve our goals. Now we are actually measuring more of the outcomes which we are producing, like the value to the customer, like the customer's delight, and all these things are becoming more and more critical as indicators to service management.
Yeah, Sarbojit, you raise a very valid point there, actually. The indicators and the measurements that we're using are maturing. And as they mature, so we start to actually measure the things that really matter, and one of those is the satisfaction of the customer at the end of the day, right? Are we delivering what they're looking for and in the time that they're looking for it? And does it provide everything they're looking for? So very good points. Dierk, your thoughts?
I just took a look at my crystal ball, and what said to me, because I think post-pandemic is pre-pandemic, because I think there are more crises ahead for us and more change, because change is life. Life is change. So I think there will be a change every day, or in all the evolution of service management. So there will be a change, but change is quite normal, or should be normal.
Dierk, you raise a good point there. You just said, post-pandemic is pre-pandemic. So I'd like to actually turn that question around, throw it back at you and say, should we do it the same way that we did it pre-pandemic? Have we not already learned quite a bit and improved during the pandemic?
I think what I tell all my customers is to have a good continuous improvement process, or something like continuous improvement. So if you realize that what you did pre-pandemic could serve your customer better, you can use it. So it's just take a look if it helps your customer. I don't mind if it's pre-pandemic or post-pandemic. Change is everything. Change is everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's the key message. Change is the constant here. Things will definitely change, and they are changing. And I think it's our ability to adapt to those changes and make sure that we are effective in that adaptation that makes the difference to delivering great services. So, yeah, very, very interesting. Okay. All right, Jenny, if we don't mind, let's take our next question.
Thanks, Nigel. Our next question is from Deborah. Relationship building appears essential for service management. Can you recommend any steps to build better relationships?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I'm sure that there are lots and lots of ways that we could answer this one. I think we'll start off for this time, mix it up a bit. We'll start off with Mart, and then we'll go to Johann and then Dierk.
Yeah, we could spend a whole episode on this one. I definitely need to make a pitch for the Business Relationship Management Institute with their body of knowledge finished about business relationship management. If you haven't heard about them, brm.institute, check them out. And on their website itself, there's already a ton of information. And if you can spend $195, then you have access to so much information, and it's about business relationship management. And so one of the things that they put forward is a relationship maturity model, where you literally can measure the maturity of a business relationship of 5 levels, starting from level 1, where there's barely a relationship, to all the way to level 5, when the relationship is considered strategic. to improve a relationship, there's two things that need to happen: trust and meeting needs and expectations. And that's all I'm going to say. There's more to say.
Okay. And if you really want the rest of the answer to that, please head over to the BRM Institute, sign up, and get a hold of some of their content. And they have some fantastic content. So good points, Mart. Thank you for that. Definitely. Okay. Johann, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to tell you what my grandmother told me. A child gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in that proportion. So listening and empathy.
Yeah. Listening and empathy, emotional intelligence, all very, very important points in that. Very good. Dierk, your thoughts?
Thank you, Johann. You used my words, so I have nothing more to add. Empathy, listening, getting a good collaboration, and yes, that's it.
Okay, excellent. Stephan, final thoughts on this?
It's all true for service management. For the service manager, he actually is usually in tough luck, even being in a position to have that kind of listening. So I think I mentioned the BRM role before. I would bring that up again, saying that if a service manager actually is even invited to those kind of meetings, where he can build those relationships, then already in a very good position to become a BRM, which for me is the next step after service manager. So maybe I have squeezed the question a little bit with my answer, but I think it was important to understand that you can do a lot as a service manager, but usually you kept out of the door where that kind of business relationship.
And that is a bit of a challenge, right? But I do think, would it be fair to say, though, that one of the better career progressions would be from service manager into business relationship manager? I think that would be a fair statement. And that is definitely something which is a very interesting career path to take a look at, because you're stepping away, in essence, from pure IT, if you're an IT service manager, that is, and looking at how the relationships interact between customers, internal departments, suppliers, and so on. And forging and building strong relationships is one of the key elements to successful service management. So very much a good path to move forward with. All right, Jenny, may we have our next question, please?
Sure. Our next question is from Cara Johann in Antwerp. I see our IT department becoming redundant due to cloud and outsourcing. Is BRM an alternative to the IT service manager?
Good question. So we spoke a little bit about that in the last answer, but would it be considered an alternative, or is it an add-on? Panel, what are your thoughts on that? Johann?
Yeah, I don't think it's an alternative. It may be a national progression for some people, but some service managers most probably just won't be good business relationship managers. It depends on your capability and your personality and whatever. Even though we work we work with a lot of outsourced partners, all of the stuff that happens to deliver a service still needs to happen. So I'm not convinced that the IT department will become redundant, number one. I do think that they won't look the same, but I'm 100% convinced that most of the practices and processes that we see in service management will remain in some form or another.
Yeah, Johann, you're absolutely right there. Mart, what are your thoughts?
Great question, Cara. I'd like to add that there is such thing as an ISO 44001 standard. And it's actually a business relationship management standard, all focusing on collaboration. But the beauty of the standard is it literally starts with, hey, are you thinking of outsourcing something? Maybe one of your services. It's the very first step in the standard says, the very first moment you think about outsourcing something, then this is where that relationship actually begins that you may have eventually with a third party. And then it walks you all the way through to, finding the right business partner to work with and establishing that relationship, running, managing that relationships, all the way to the very end when you say, you know what, it didn't work out, we part ways, which can happen. And if it doesn't part way, you just keep going. So that's the beauty of that standard. But what the standard is really keen about, you can give it away. It doesn't mean that you give away the management and the control of that service. So IT departments will not become redundant. You still need to manage that stuff and, be in charge, so to speak, in a nice way. And will it be complemented with something like business relationship management? Absolutely. And again, ISO 44001 might be a good guidance for you to consider.
Great points by everybody there. I think that a couple of things spring to mind in this. One of them is that I agree with both Mart and Johann. Your IT department isn't going to disappear, okay? Because there is so much that an IT department will be required to do, even if you outsource some of your services or all of them. Okay? There's so much that will have to be done, but what needs to be done will change. And that requires effective and really well thought out change management. So the skills that team that you have at the moment in your IT department will need to change. And if you put a proper change management process in place, you should have no problem with that. But managing an outsourced arrangement brings its own challenges. And there's a lot of literature out there if you look around. Dierk, I see Dierk smiling as he's dealing with this all the time in the real world, as are most of the guests on this panel today. It is a big challenge, and it brings with it lots and lots of unique challenges. And it, as Mart correctly put, it is really critical that you build very strong relationships from the start of that outsourcing agreement and arrangement. Okay? You have to be very clearly defined in what it is you're doing, what it is you want, what you expect, how is it going to be measured. There's a lot to it. So the IT department isn't going anywhere. Don't worry too much about that. But the skills that are required to stay within it will change slightly. All right. Okay, then I think we've got time for probably 2 more questions if we're fast, panel. So, Jenny, what is our next question?
Our next question is from a live viewer, Omar. Today, every business is looking to deliver continuous improvement. Could we see a possible use of service management to service projects and programs efficiently?
Good questions. So, there's a lot to unpack in that. But Sarbojit, why don't you kick us off with that, and then we'll hear from Johann.
Right. Thanks for that. So service management and continuous improvement, there are part and parcel has been there if you look at the frameworks. Now, when we look into other aspects of service projects and program efficiency, continuous improvement is everywhere, and it's like walking the extra mile. So we have to do something extra to make sure that what we have been doing yesterday, I do it better today, and will be doing even more better tomorrow and days to come. So there's a quote to say that there is no traffic jam in that extra mile travel. So we have to go that extra mile always and every time.
Good points, Sarbojit. Johann, what are your thoughts on this? And then we'll come to Dierk.
I would say service management is continual improvement. So if you manage the delivery of your service, it's your job to make it better all the time.
Yeah, good point, and I totally agree with that. Dierk, what are your thoughts before we hear from Mart?
I'm not quite sure if service management is continuous improvement, because if you look at agile methods and agile frameworks, I think they did not invent continuous improvement, but they served it to a higher level. So what I think is that service management can be used to serve projects and programs efficiently, and can be the counterpart to agile thoughts, to agile methods, which focus on effectiveness. I think it's the right word for that. So I think it's really good, and you could use service management to serve projects and programs efficiently.
You definitely could. Interesting indeed. Okay. Mart, final thoughts on this one before we move on?
Yeah, continuous improvement should be everywhere. whether that's for service management or project management, program management, it should not, be as in, oh, we only do it for service management. That's one. And then, project management, program management, service management, they all may be their own discipline, but they all are in a way very tightly connected and related, interrelated. So let's not make this their own thing, because they depend so much on each other. And therefore, again, they all depend on their continuous improvement. That should be the focus. That should be a mindset in the organization. There's always room for improvement. Like you said earlier, Nigel, nothing will ever be perfect. Always look for opportunities for improvement.
Agree with you totally, Mart. It's one of the underpinning principles that should be part of any company strategy. And again, I just want to come back to what Stephan raised much, much earlier in the show, where he said psychological safety. Yeah. Having this mindset requires the people that you have working for you to feel psychologically safe. Because without it, they will not take the risks to improve anything. Because even a service improvement comes with a risk, right? It's the folks that are coming up with the creative ideas, the ones that are willing to put themselves out there and say, you know what, if we did this, it would probably really help, right? And nobody wants to stick their neck out if they don't feel psychologically safe in the environment that they're working in. So come back to that. Make sure the culture of the organization feels right to be able to do that for everybody. All right, let's squeeze in on the last question, I think, for today.
Our last question is from Jasmine in London. I am about to be promoted to service desk manager, but I am nervous that I lack knowledge or skills. Which skills would the panel recommend I focus on first?
Very interesting question. I would say, why don't everybody come up with one skill that Jasmine should focus on? Okay, we'll start off with Mart and then we'll move to Johann.
Be a good communicator. That means be a very good listener.
Okay. Very good listener. Fantastic. Okay. 2 ears and 1 mouth, as Johann said earlier. Johann, what are your thoughts?
Genuinely care.
Genuinely care. Yep. Genuinely care. Absolutely. Stephan.
Own the problem and try to be empathetic, although it's over the phone most of
Own the problem. Yeah. Yeah. Own the problem and be empathetic. Those are very, very good points too. Dierk.
Yasmin, first of all, congratulations. And I think my tip will be self-confident. Be self-confident. You will do your job good.
Okay. Interesting. Definitely. And Sarbojit, your last thoughts on this?
Yes. Jasmine, I would say that the people skill, because as a service desk manager, you will be interacting with lots of people at the customer, even internally at your end, the service department people, the other function area, information technology and others. So you have to be a people person so that you can work with them, understand them, and service your customer the best.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Those were great tips. I'm sure Yasmin's got some food for thought there to take a look at. Okay. Unfortunately, and this hour has flown by, well done, everybody. We have actually, got through a number of questions there. So firstly, I'd like to thank the producers that were online today for your excellent questions. Really great job. Watch out for your name in the credits. As I said earlier, if your question was selected, you'll see your name in there. So panel, it's time for the closing remarks. So I think we're just going to walk around the panel. Stephan, we're going to begin with you.
Yeah, well, it was a very great session. Thanks. And I appreciate this. There was something I learned. Another quote. I have one. If you do something the way you do it, like for 10 years, you're probably doing something wrong. Stock change. That's from the American side.
Good point. Good point. Thanks, Stephan. Mart, your final thoughts.
Strong customer service culture cannot be copied. And so it's all about establishing the right culture in your organization around service. So have a service culture, establish a service culture. That's final thought.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Establishing a service culture is so critical, and it starts at the top as well. Yeah, that's one of the most important things to remember. Okay, Johann, your final thoughts, please.
When I was a young service manager, I made the mistake to try and do everything in the book. Don't. Context is important, and really all the steps in the process is not always necessary. So I'm going to end with this quote from Peter Drucker: "There's nothing as useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all."
Johann, you always come up with a wonderful quote, and I have to say I 100% agree with that one. There's so many organizations tend to chase the framework for the framework's sake, because it says in this book on page 761, subparagraph 3.2, that you have to do this. Yeah? You do not have to do that. Absolutely true. Pragmatism and application and context really are important. Thanks, Johann. Appreciate it. Dierk.
So thanks for being part of letting me the chance to be a part of this great panel. I'm not quoting anyone now, but one word to the last, I think there's life in the old dog yet. So hold on to service management, hold on to your experience, and hold on to your knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good points indeed. So the service manager is alive and well. and needs to and is part of the continual improvement model. So there we go. Okay, thank you. Sarbojit, what are your final thoughts?
Well, thank you. I learned a lot as well, but at the end, I would like to knit the Mart's word with Johann's thing. So again, quoting from Peter Drucker, as he said, is strategy. It's sorry, I got a bit lost. Yeah, it's basically, as he says, the strategy. It's culture is strategy for breakfast. Sorry, it's night time, so my dinner time is over. So I couldn't think of breakfast yet. So strategy. Yeah. So that's the thing. The point is that you have to be aware of the culture and work with the culture to be people-centric. Yeah, sorry for that.
Good points. No, that's fine. I know it's very late for you already, Sarbojit, so thank you very much. And Jenny, what are your final thoughts?
I just want to say thank you to the panel for your great answers today, and to the viewers for your live questions, all of the questions that came in today, and wishing luck to everyone who's in the service management profession, who's in it now, who's just starting, and who's also looking to advance their career. Hopefully they found this helpful as I did.
Totally agree with you there. I just wanted to also give a shout out to our online, to everybody online who's been in the chat. There's been a huge amount of chat going on today online, a lot of questions, a lot of people making great comments. A lot of them have been shown on the show today. Don't forget, everybody and panelists, thank you so much for just taking the time out of your day to participate in this. You're providing a very, very valuable resource for people that are in their careers and are trying to improve things. All right. Okay, so over on our website, you can search for answers for up to 1,500 questions. And it's a really, really useful, comprehensive free resource. We connect you with over 170 experts from all over the world. Also, don't forget that you can listen to the audio versions of the show on your preferred podcast platform, and we publish it on a number of them. Yeah? Please also take a moment to like, comment, and share and subscribe. It really doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps other people discover the content that we're creating. And we're trying to create content here that helps everybody. So looking forward, what's happening in the future? Join us on Monday the 13th. It's 8 o'clock GMT. And Stephan Brendel, who is on our panel today, he will be leading us through how to become a business relationship manager. So that's going to be a fantastic show. It leads on nicely from today's service manager show. And over on the Friday the 17th at 2 o'clock GMT, We're going to take a look at your must-have project management templates. That show's always a winner. You can take a look at all of the details of those shows. Have a look at apmginternational.com on our events page, and you'll see the details of those, including all the panelists. Feel free to send us a connection request. Just please don't try to sell us anything. We'll definitely not appreciate that, but you're welcome to connect to us and ask us questions. So just finally, subscribe to the show. We'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next show. Bye.